Good morning, everyone. It's Good Friday morning, and I hope you're keeping well and keeping safe. We'll be recording the Easter Sunday service in a little while in church for that to go out for Easter Sunday. It's going to be a strange Good Friday because I'm going to be doing an Easter Sunday service in a couple of hours, and then this evening at 7:30 we're going to be back in Good Friday again. And we're going to be sharing live on Facebook here from the Manse, and hopefully that video will then go up on YouTube a little bit later on after that. So do tune in 7:30 this evening, and there will be some reflections and there will be some attempt at singing hopefully, and we would love you to share in that with us as a family. So it's Good Friday, it's just after 8:35, and I don't know about you, but sometimes on Good Friday, whenever I read the Gospel passages, whenever I read the Gospel story around the events of that day, what strikes me is the way that the Gospel writers very often time it, and they give the times of what's happening. So we know when the hour of the day when Jesus was crucified. Mark does that in his account of Jesus' death. We're going to read just a little bit of it just now. And they compelled a passer-by, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. And it was the third hour when they crucified him. And the inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two robbers, one on his right and one on his left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "Aha, you would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself and come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him to one another, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross that we may see and believe." Those who were crucified with him also reviled him. When the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "Behold, he's calling Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." The 3rd hour, the 6th hour, the 9th hour. That's what Mark tells us. That's how he divides up the day. The 3rd hour of the day in our terms is about 9 o'clock in the morning, for the hour between 8 and 9 in the morning, the hour that I'm speaking to you right now. And so as I reflect on that day and reflect on the hours, I realize that it's about this time of the morning that Jesus is actually nailed to the cross. And we can follow him through the next 6 hours to the noontime when darkness falls, and to the 9th hour, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when he finally breathes his last. But as he's making his way up to the cross, as he's going with the other criminals up the hill, he encounters this man coming the other way, and Simon from Cyrene is forced to carry the cross. Simon is, if you like, at least to a lot of our eyes, is in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's just passing by. His plans for that day do not involve carrying a cross to the top of a hill. He's come from Cyrene, which is modern day Libya. So maybe this is his first time in Jerusalem. Maybe this is his first time ever getting to Passover, and he's looking forward to the whole experience, and then this happens. Some Roman soldiers grab him and force him to carry a cross. What Simon does on that day is a visual illustration of what Jesus taught about discipleship. That if anyone would come after him, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow him. But also what happens to Simon on that day clearly has an impact. Mark, you notice, describes him as the father of Alexander and Rufus. That means that people for whom Mark is writing know these two guys called Alexander and Rufus, and know that their dad is called Simon, and they're able to make the link between the two. Alexander and Rufus are members of the church community that Mark is writing for, which presumably means that Simon himself became a follower of Jesus Christ after this incident. God works in Simon's life in a totally unexpected way. I'm sure Simon was expecting to have a wonderful experience in Jerusalem for Passover. I'm sure he was expecting to grow in his faith by attending the feast. What he didn't expect was for God to work in his life and turn it around completely. And through the most horrific of circumstances. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that God can work in a life in a way that we don't expect. And maybe you can give an example of that in your own life. And if God can work in these circumstances, if God can work in the situation of someone like Simon, then we know that he's at work right now. That in the midst of all of the confusion and the difficulty and the frustration and the sadness and the pain of this time that we're going through, God will be working. He'll be working in lives. He is working in lives. He's working in lives this Easter. Not the way we maybe planned it. Maybe not the ideal circumstances that we would have had for Easter this year. But God is still at work. God is at work through you and through me. God is at work through these circumstances. And it may be that it's through this time that somebody comes to faith in him. It may be that it's through this time that somebody recognizes his work in their life and starts to follow him, to deny themselves, to take up their cross and follow him. It would be wonderful if that were the case this Easter time. Trust that whatever you're doing during this weekend, you will stay safe and also that you will draw close to him who gave himself for you on Good Friday. Take care. God bless.